Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
What's up, Cal fans? Welcome back to another episode of the California Golden Bearcast, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We are officially back after my extended vacation, which only a few things happened, Rob. Only a few.
Only a few.
So what we're going to do is have an episode titled, appropriately, If You Happen to Be Under a Rock for the Last 2 weeks. And we will catch everybody up on what has happened in Cal football in, dare I say, some of the most surprisingly good news-oriented 2-week periods I've ever seen following this program. But as we begin, let's start off with the Bear Essentials, and let's hear from our new head football coach. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Being around the leaders and been extremely fortunate. I've coached in 4 national titles. I've won multiple conference championships. I've coached for 3 NFL organizations and been super blessed for that opportunity. But as I shared with the team, it just hits different when you come into this building. And, I walked up that same hill 100 times from Clark Kerr, okay, at 6 a.m. and survived Bill Dutton, okay. I, again, went to battle on that field like these young men, and the pride I took in my Business 111 class that I was encouraged to drop many times, right, and how freaking pumped I was to get a C+. Right, in that operation. So, but it hits a little different, when you're truly at home and the pride that you take. So, in all honesty, I'm so flattered. I told my wife, I said, hey, we might be on Southwest and get an Uber over there, and that certainly wasn't the case. Incredibly pleasantly surprised of unbelievable treatment that my family was afforded through Ron and this amazing organization. But right now, all we're doing right now, my leg is pumping because I want to be FaceTiming and calling individuals and some talent acquisition to come aboard here and go attack this mission with myself. I can't wait to meet every single person on this team and meet with everybody in this organization.
That's pretty. That says enough.
Rob, were you there?
I was there. I was sitting if you're looking at the screen right now, I was basically to the right of Justin Allegri.
Wait, what?
Like, I wasn't on the stage. I'm just saying, like, I'm staying in the people sitting there. I'm like to the right, like to the right in front of him.
That's awesome. Were you taking pictures of that?
I did. Yeah. I was there for this to take pictures and a little video. I didn't take much video because I realized they were streaming this, and then I went down to the press conference downstairs in the press room that you and I have spent many a night after Cal football games at. And Tosh and Ron spoke to the media there. But yes, I was in the room.
Well, there's so much there that we are going to cover for everyone as we kind of look back over these 2 weeks, because I think, like, in that minute and a half clip, it actually covers a lot of the experience as this was going down. So, Rob, I'd like to ask you to take us through the timeline of events, because I'm the one that was under the rock in this hypothetical scenario.
Technically, you were sunbathing on a rock.
Yeah, I was a turtle on a rock in Hawaii after the big game. So we're going to go all the way back to starting basically, like a little bit before our last podcast that I was on with Nam and yourself. And then we'll go through a timeline of a series of events. And then we're going to kind of come back and talk about our experience as we were kind of following along with this. So, Rob, take it away.
We'll start with, Wilcox being let go, and we've had that podcast on the memorandum of his tenure here, and that's kind of what sparked, I say lit the fuse would be the more apt term of what has transpired over the last 2 weeks. And so you have that, and, I think we've spoken enough about that. And then that's when the process started to go. And then Ron, in his press conference to the media, did mention, and this is just to give context, did mention the Tosh thing came about 6 days ago or 8 days ago. I think that's what he said. And so that's, only half of the 2 weeks since Wilcox's firing, right? So my understanding is over that week before Tosh was really in play, that was when you're doing the vetting. That's when you're vetting the other possible candidates. And Ron also mentioned in his presser that, he didn't mention a specific number, but he did mention guys that were on the list would get a job. So you'd have to, shift the list a little bit. So there's a lot of people he was talking to. And of course, you need to do your due diligence, right? Not only are you interviewing the coach, but you're talking to, maybe other acquaintances that know around him and so on. For example, he talked about him talking to Nick Saban about Tosh and, getting some info about the person he is and so on from Saban as well. So, that's a process. It takes the process, and it's not necessarily everyone thought he would be the de facto lead in the stable, but you still need to do your due diligence. This is a massive undertaking by the athletic department, and the money that's being infused into the football program to maybe direct us in the right way for the next cycle of realignment, which might happen in a few years. So you need to get the hire right. And I know people got antsy with the timeline and all that, but I think them doing their due diligence was the right thing to do, and that's exactly what happened. So, that's just for context. So we'll travel back to 2 weeks ago, right after Wilcox is fired. Immediately, of course, the Tosh links are made with the Cal football head coach position open, and that was from all over. Pete Thamel, I think Chris Vanini tweeted it out too. I think everyone pretty much tweeted it out. And then Ron has that press conference on, I think, Tuesday after, with Rolovich as the interim head coach. And Ron kind of, whether it be, I don't know, in hindsight, you can probably say that he dropped the tidbit, but I don't think so. I think he just said it wrong, but he just said he said, quote, "come back to Cal," unquote. And people started to go nuts because they were like, it has to be Tosh. And then there's a private jet that goes from, Andy, was this correct? Does it go from Eugene to Oakland? I thought it went from Oakland to Eugene.
I mean, my sources read it, so you never know, but it was Eugene to Oakland.
So maybe it went both ways. My understanding was it was a flight from Oakland to Eugene. And so, yeah, I mean, if you listen to Ron's presser after Tosh's introductory remarks, you kind of get more context to it too, because he was like, I didn't know you could just talk to guys. He talks about how he called Dan Lanning and asked for his, quote unquote blessing to talk to Tosh. And I guess Lanning was basically like, you don't need my blessing, but sure, yeah, you can talk to him. And he also,
yeah, that's when Ron was like, the NFL, this works a little differently.
Yeah. And then he said he zoomed with Tosh and could do it anytime, anywhere. So I understand the private jet people going nuts, but looking back at it, it's there might not have been anyone on that plane. It might have been someone totally else that just happened to go from Eugene to Oakland or Oakland to Eugene.
I mean, I'm sure you remember this as an Angels fan. This is unique between you, me, Blue Jays fans, and Dodgers fans. and you and I representing the Angels and the Giants. But Ohtani's the private jet that went from LA to Toronto, and then it ended up being not Ohtani.
Yeah, I
but
remember that.
what is his last name? I believe his name is oh my gosh, how did I forget this? He's on Shark Tank, and Robert Herjavec, and it was the Shark Tank
It was just
investor who was actually going from LA to Toronto. So yeah, you never know, but the hype was there. I love the PJ. When the PJ hype starts happening, you can tell the fan base is at a different level.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was huge. And then of course more leaks start to come out that Tosh is becoming the lead per se, and they're zeroing in on him. That I texted you that as soon as someone says that type of stuff, it's like they're about to sign the contract. It's like right there. They just can't officially that he's signed. And then because it felt like Tosh was done, then the topic moved on to other things, right? Like JKS, is he staying? Is he leaving? Rolovich, what's happening with him? What's happening with other members of the staff? So on and so forth. And, the only thing as of right now that's been resolved officially is JKS is staying on as our Cal quarterback, as he announced just yesterday. So we're recording this on Sunday, and the official announcement went out on Saturday. And we'll get to that part in a little bit. But right before the official Tosh announcement by the athletic department, I think the cool thing, I think Andy, you and I agree, is all the former players that we grew up with, going to college with, and so on, starting to come out and saying this is the right hire. So happy to see Tosh as the head coach. I saw Instagram posts from Worrell Williams. I saw Cam Jordan, Deshaun Jackson. Tosh also mentions in his presser he got text messages from Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff and so on. So I think this is going to be huge in terms of bringing guys back. And he does also mention in his presser, I hope you guys don't just come back for games. I hope you're here for spring ball and practices. And the cool thing that he mentions in the media presser, and kind of tangential to this, is when he's talking about the guys that he's been around and coached in terms of quarterbacks with Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel and now Dante Moore and Tua, Jalen Hurts, all those guys, and how he as a defensive-minded head coach interacts with the quarterbacks on his team. And the cool part is just all these guys are going to be a part of Jaren's life now moving forward. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Small little nonchalant list there.
Yeah, I'm just going to add you to a group text of all these quarterbacks that were amazing in college.
Some of the most legendary players ever from Hawaii. No big deal.
Yeah, not a big deal at all. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And then right before the official announcement, or right after kind of the leak that he's signing, you see a 4-star defensive end say he got an offer from the University of California, Berkeley, after a long conversation with Coach Coach Lupoi. So, it kind of felt like it was done and dusted. And then Cal announces the hire, the official hiring happens, and on Thursday. And then we get to the presser, which we were at on Friday, which is, that's kind of, I think we've come all the way full circle to present day. I guess the one thing to final, put a cap on the timeline is Tosh cancels. Adam Rittenberg actually wrote this story talking to Tosh. Adam Rittenberg, ESPN. Also, if people don't know, he's from Berkeley. He's originally from Berkeley. So I don't think he went to Cal, but he has, ties to Berkeley and the Bay Area. So whenever you get something from him, it's kind of cool just to get that perspective. But he talks about how Tosh canceled all his afternoon meetings and fly to Honolulu on a commercial flight on his own dime, and talked with Jaron and his family from 12 to 2:30 a.m. local time, and then flew back. Which is crazy to me, that he did that all on Friday, and then on Saturday you get the official announcement that Jaron is returning. So I'm assuming all of that was kind of in the works already, but it's just cool to see that our head coach was, he could have easily done this over Zoom or something else, right? So he can do other things, but he felt the urgency and the need to do this just to make sure that his budding star at quarterback was taken care of. And so he flies from Eugene down to Berkeley, and then from Berkeley to Hawaii, all in a 24-hour period, which is insane to me. And he also mentions in that presser, I think in the media presser, he says that he was up till 2 because he was interviewing coaches and talking to people. So I thought that was interesting to note, where the official announcement had just happened Thursday, and he's that's probably when he signed the doc, but he's already working on his staff and who he's going to bring aboard to Berkeley. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We have Tosh Lupoi as the Travers family head football coach, and that is it. We're still awaiting coordinators, assistant coaches, and he did kind of mention and allude to that he's going to have a conversation with all the remaining coaches, and it was kind of ruthless in that way. And he's like, if you're not going to recruit and be a part of the culture here, then you could hit the portal. And I was like, damn, he's not playing around at all. So
the guy that canceled all of his meetings and wanted to. I liked it when he was like, I appreciate being here in front of you all, but I really wish I could end this now and go out and start recruiting.
Yeah, what was this thing? It was like, every minute I spend in here is a minute that I can't spend on talent acquisition.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, damn.
And that's it is a good place, I think, to start our conversation. It's a pretty drastic shift from where we've been, right? Because fundamental, and I thought he also touched on the cool part, because everyone was like, well, I think him and Ron were talking about the missed opportunity where that was high school signing day and lamenting that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, oh, are you going to hit the portal really hard? And he was like, look, if you look at Oregon's program, these are high school kids that are making huge differences.
Yep. It's development.
We need to win at high school. And we have true freshmen that are playing. And then also, yes, absolutely, on development. So I think that that is a pretty fundamental, it felt like to me in the last couple of years, we decided that we could have mediocre high school recruiting classes and then fill gaps in the portal. And we just never really leaned that heavy into being like, no, this is all about talent acquisition. There's another piece of that, which is we've never really been able to compete in the trenches the way that we wanted to in the Wilcox era.
Yep.
And Tosh came in and basically explicitly said that's how you win the games. And you and I have talked about how hard it is to win two different sets of talent, defensive line talent and offensive line talent.
Yep.
And Tosh is coming in here with no apologies, no asterisks, and saying that we're going to go and compete for that. And it's not surprising given where he's come from to hear that, but it is, I think, a pretty big shift away from what we have been hearing, which is we can't compete there. Therefore, we're going to have to, I think it's we're going to have to coach up, right? We're going to have to coach up and invest there. And that was the philosophy. And this philosophy is a little bit different.
Some things in life are just made for each other. Peanut butter and jelly, macaroni and cheese, Modelo and college football. College football season is Modelo season, and the season has officially kicked off. The Modelo Recruiter is back in action, looking to reward full-time fans who give their all for their team and their school week in and week out. If you're listening to this, you've been recruited. So lace them up and get out there. And don't forget to make time for a well-deserved ice-cold reward. Because college football wouldn't be the same without you. So grab yourself a Modelo and enjoy the official beer sponsor of the College Football Playoff, Modelo.
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it's also not like a like for like comparison, right? Because I think I truly think, and this is also off of conversations that I've had with people in the building and around the building, is that the support for the program has changed drastically in the last 6 months. And so if now you're being, let's say for the sake of the argument, right? I'm not saying it is true, but let's just say for the sake of the argument, let's say your NIL pool has now doubled. Then that in itself allows you to be able to target guys that you wouldn't have normally gotten at least a foot in the door with. Because you understand, like, it's like the whole conversation of when we were looking at a head coach, right? Like there's some guys you call just so you can hear the answer no, so you can move on. In a weird way that kind of is true with recruiting too. It's like, okay, like how much are you guys looking at NIL wise? And, let's say it's a 5-star offensive lineman. He calls a number and you're like, well, thank you very much for your conversation. And you have to move on because it's like, it doesn't fit within your budget. But I do wonder now, maybe that was a sticking point with Tosh and his move here. Maybe that's why it took so long, was just making sure some of the finances and the support system around him was in place so that he could succeed in those things. And now that the donors had seen what has happened in the landscape of college football with the amount of money that's needed to be able to compete at a decent level, maybe now they're going, oh, okay, so we can't stretch the buck anymore. Like we have to invest in this. And maybe that's where you're seeing a lot of this money come in from, that allows us maybe, and we'll see. We'll see. Like I think the benchmark for Tosh that I was talking with Peter and some of the writers with was like who he brings in at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator and some of the other coaches will be a big tell of how much is in the assistant pool that he's able to spend. And then also the types of names that we're tied to come the transfer portal will be very telling in like how much NIL funds we're going to be able to have to spend with. Because, for the sake of the example, let's say, Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh is saying he's going to be in the portal, right? He's clearly a number 1 wide receiver. So are we able to at least like get linked with him and be in his, final 3 or final 4 schools that he wants to come to, even if we don't get him, because recruiting is not only about the money and or a coach or any of that, right? It's a lot of factors. But the fact that we were even linked with him just goes to show that we might have the backing now to be able to go in and take P4 starters or P4 players. Like, and I talked to Nam about this on the phone, but like Nam's thing was, yeah, if we can tell, we're going to be able to tell if we're taking players from other P4 schools that aren't reclamation projects. Yeah. And, or guys that were in P4, then dropped down to G5 and we're taking them back into that P4 level. Like if we're straight up taking guys from P4, like that's going to be very, very telling. So like that's the keep an eye on type thing over the next few weeks to see where we are. Because if that's the case, then yeah, we're truly in a different era of Cal football from top down.
I mean, it feels like that era has really begun in a way. I just can't remember a series like this. It felt so well executed from Cal's perspective. I think that Tosh, again, going back to that clip that we played even says the quiet part out loud. Like, perception's reality, right? With Cal.
Yeah.
I mean, he's expecting to be on a Southwest flight and an Uber over, and he gets a private jet, right? It's like, that's the difference. That's the before and that's the present.
Yep.
Like, to me, that's that is an amazing articulation of the seriousness that this new regime is taking. And then I also think that, the bringing of the momentum that has been created from the donor side is being felt more broadly, right? You're seeing Michigan State raise a ton of money. You're seeing Northwestern raise a ton of money. Stanford is rumored to be announcing a, more, they already got the $50 million gift, and they're going to announce something soon if they haven't already, which is going to be even more than that. So, you're seeing certain programs. I think Texas Tech makes it like really obvious in regards to just how fast, Indiana as well, but like just how fast you can become relevant.
Yep.
And again, you're all kind of fighting for relevancy. So us taking these things really seriously is a great sign. The other thing I took as a big piece of evidence for that was the fact that if Tosh was our number one candidate and we locked in on Tosh early, we ran a pretty spotless strategy on how to announce it, even though we weren't necessarily able to announce it because of the approvals that have to take place. And so effectively what you saw was the day before signing day, it was like, you just sort of saw like strategic leaks, in my opinion, where it was like regional writers, and then you would have like, all right, let's get all the former players. Now, if this is intentional or not, I don't know, but like, that's the way I read it. It was like all the former players coming out the day before signing day to keep the class intact. Genius, right? It was like every single thing felt like there was a rhyme and a reason behind why we were doing it, and in the way it was happening. All the way up until, still to this day. So I my hat's off to, like, definitely to Ron, and also like I wanted to give a shout out to the donors that when they saw that Ron was going to be underneath Knowlton, withdrew the funds. And at the time, that was a pretty tough time for us. I remember it on the podcast. I don't think we were overwhelmingly happy about it.
Nope.
And worried about the bigger impact more broadly when the negative headlines were written. But it's absolutely the right thing to do. Like, hindsight being what it is, now I can say without any doubt that was the right thing to do. And you can see why they were so adamant about that. Giving this person the ability to move without having to deal with, some of the bureaucracy that we would get caught up in the past. We just have not seen this. I think even in the peak days of Cal, you can talk about performance on the field all day. It's like we've had 2-week runs that have been more relevant and better for us. But from an execution standpoint, from an administration standpoint, I think Ron deserves a ridiculous amount of credit for what has happened over the last 2 weeks. Locking in on your first candidate, closing your first candidate, and then also doing so with everything else that is going on, all of the changes that were available, which I know there was a lot of trepidation about. Do you make this change now? What if somebody else came in late on Tosh? And then, closing the deal before any of that happened. We can go back to the basketball hires, the Musselman stuff, even if Musselman was playing Cal. I mean, that's not that long ago. Like, I remember those days where candidates were messing around and thinking Cal was unserious. I remember Musselman put that out through his camp. Cal was unserious. And again, that dude, many question marks. But still, we were very serious in this, and it showed. And we've delivered so far. And ultimately what has that created is, over the last 2 weeks, I don't think I have seen this much enthusiasm from the former Cal Bears that I am close to in my life. Ever. Maybe maybe since we were in college, but like, in the text thread, because text threads weren't really a thing back then. Like in a text thread, optimism, maybe Jared 2016, right? But like
2015.
that's
2015.
2015. That's it. So
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think the thing, I can't remember if I said this privately to you and Nam, or if we said this on the pod, but just looking at the timeline, I was like, I just hope that they announce this before the CFP starts. And so, because every time Oregon plays, they're gonna be talking about Lanning in Oregon, but they're also going to be talking about Will Stein at Kentucky. Every time the offense does something well, and every time the defense does something well, they're going to be talking about Tosh now being the head coach at Cal. And just even getting those words spoken on a national broadcast with, millions of eyes watching, like, that's huge for us from just a marketing standpoint. Like, we needed to milk the marketing opportunity here as much as we possibly could. And I feel like we're doing that right now. Now, if we had flipped a couple guys during National Signing Day, then that would have caused a lot more buzz. But I think looking at it right now and everything that I'm hearing, like, the portal is going to be very interesting for us in giving us the opportunity to make some noise, particularly because now Jaron is now in, right? And he put out that statement with like the hashtag come to Cal. There's going to be a lot of skill position players on the offensive side. They're going to want to play with a quarterback like that. So let's cautiously be optimistic to see what the transfer portal brings, and who we can bring into that. And Andy, to your point, you're talking about the strategy behind it and the period of like information that's leaking. I'm like happy like not a bunch of these leaks happen, because we could be in a worse state. Like look at what's happening with Penn State.
yeah,
Like basically every single candidate you're putting out there because you want to build some hype into saying that you made the right decision to fire James Franklin is coming back to bite you, because every single time a big name coach is out there and you're talking to him and spurns you, you just look more and more like an idiot. So there's always worse. It's the thing I always say. It's that there's always worse, and in this case, like, we were probably at the top. We're probably just a model program in how to go about a coaching search.
And you are just infinitely happy that you no longer get text messages from me about Jonathan Smith, right?
Thank
Like
God,
that
yeah.
has to be a quality of life improvement for you.
There is a thing though, and we can talk about this at a later podcast, but I've always said no to Jonathan Smith as a head coach, because much like Bill Belichick, when UNC hired him, you're not getting him just for the Brady years, you're getting him for the not the Drake May years. You're getting him for the Mac Jones years as well. Like, that's the Bill Belichick you're getting. And same with Jonathan Smith as a head coach. You're not just getting Oregon State Jonathan Smith. You're getting the 2 years of like how terrible those Michigan State teams were. That Jonathan Smith. So my little like thing, and we're drumming up the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator boards on Right for California, and Avi and I have been on phone calls for multiple nights, sleuthing through the internets of trying to find candidates. But a sneaky good hire might be Jonathan Smith as offensive coordinator, because he's getting paid by Michigan State. You could probably offset some of those costs to give you a better chance at some other coordinators and other position coaches. But that wouldn't be the worst of hires. That would be a solid.
The tables have turned.
Once again, not as head coach. I did not want him as head coach, but as offensive coordinator, I could live with.
I love it. Well, the last thing I kind of want to round us out on is this idea, like what I love. There's two things here. So one, the focus on talent acquisition. I absolutely think, and like ultimately what Tosh to me is like what he said in his press conference is like, look, like I also loved how authentic he was with, I'm not the brightest person in the room, and like I always felt that at Cal. I was surrounded by people that are way smarter than I was. And it was a grind for me in every single class. And I love that he said he like like told to drop that class multiple times because I had the same thing. I mean, especially when you're working with the football team, it's 50 plus hours a week on top of a full class schedule. Coming in as a tennis athlete, you're talking about, you're putting in 60 to 70 hours a week on top of a full class schedule. Now these student athletes are doing it with cross country travel. I mean, it's hard as hell, and Cal does not baby you along the way. It's
Nope.
a sink or swim place. And there's plenty of people that sink and go to Berkeley City, and it's the sad reality of it. It's just hard. So yeah, that authenticity, that hustle, that grit to get after it, and from a talent acquisition standpoint, what he did with Jaron to me was he left nothing to chance, which was a company value that we had previously at Handshake, and that company value actually was one of the original company values, and it stayed on as we redid them. And so I just feel like Handshake being, the talent acquisition platform for collegiate, for that audience, for Gen Z, we talk about it all the time. Used to talk about it all the time. And what Tosh is doing is like living that. He is living that talent acquisition reality. He's getting out there. He's leaving nothing to chance. And as you said, it's in person. It's not Zoom. It's a differentiator, and you can see that the type of approach that he's going to take in this program. There are some quotes where he was like, I am going to invest every single minute, or like he thanked Jordan, his wife, for allowing himself to invest every single minute into how he can be a better coach. Yeah, I just think that like that mentality it's infectious. It's young, right? It's younger energy. And I'm beyond excited for what that is ultimately going to mean. And then what I thought about like with Tosh was like, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, okay, we're going to be a team that's going to invest in the trenches. We're going to win in the trenches, right? He wants to win with pressuring the quarterback. And then he's like, games are won and lost based on how well you can get after the quarterback and protect your own, right? That's basically what he said, in paraphrasing a bit. And then I watched this weekend's slate of games. I started with the BYU game in Texas Tech. Texas Tech is a good example program where they had a big cash infusion. They went out and they hit the portal really hard. I don't necessarily think we need to hit the portal the same way, but they were able to become very competitive very quickly. And what did I watch them do against BYU and Bachmeier? Just totally disrupt the quarterback. It's just like one of those things that is just so clear, and that they're able to win in the trenches. And then you make the transition over to the Alabama-Georgia game. What did Georgia do? Got after the quarterback, right? They made Simpson blink, and it wasn't even close. Like, Bama got boat raced. They're lucky to be in the playoff, and we will talk about that. And then you kind of go to, it wasn't as much Ohio State, Indiana, but like a 13-10 game. None of these games are like 66-3, like 13-10, Big Ten championship. And then you round out with sort of what was the Duke Virginia game. And ultimately, I think like Duke had done a pretty good job all the way up until that final drive of winning the game on the defensive line and rattling Virginia's offense. So you kind of watched this person who has come from the Alabama, Oregon, Georgia, like, he has the connection to Kirby Smart. He has the connection to Dan Lanning. He has the connection to Nick Saban. He has the connection to the NFL and to Raheem Morris and to all of these prestigious coaches articulate exactly what they wanted to do. And then you saw it as evidence and substantiated by every single championship game this weekend. And I think above anything else, I was most excited about that. It's not being afraid to really be leaning into the state of college football and where it is today. And a big part of that is to what you said, Rob, which is that he's also been able to drum up the excitement and the commitment from donors who maybe have been on the sidelines a bit and been disengaged. But as I think about like where we're going from here, that's it's that hustle. It's that drive. It's the ability to close and being about it. It's not saying you're going to do it. It's the person that says they're going to do it and then literally hops on a commercial flight to Honolulu and then flies immediately back and then probably flies to Oregon to get their team ready. Like it's that. It's being about it. And I will plug the podcast that we did with Trevor Guyton, because I thought Trevor outlined his experience with Tosh. And Tosh was everything to him, and he said, talking about like a perfectionist and all of those things. So if you want to get even more excited, small plug here, but what Trevor said about his coach, who is now our head coach of the program, was a very good embodiment, I think, or personification rather, of what and who was at the press conference on Friday.
Yeah, I echo most of everything of what you just said. I think for me, it's like I'm still cautiously optimistic because I remember when Wilcox was hired, and I remember the same type, not the level, but type of excitement of the style of football we thought we were going to see and what he was going to try and do, and talking about power run game and things like that. So I thought we were going to get those offensive linemen and defensive linemen and play that type style of offense. And once again, times have changed. Even just it's been less than a decade, and college football is not the sport that it was in the 2010s. But like, I need to see some of those changes, at least on a very, very football level, of like, are we bringing in those types of talents first? Because then we're going to be able to play that brand of football. So that's why I'm like cautiously optimistic. I'll be full on optimism like after we sign a couple of these offensive linemen through the portal, and we're like, oh yeah, we're playing with the big boys. So that's why I'm like, all right, I can start to get hyped, but I'm not going to let myself get too hyped yet. Like, I got to see some more signs first. But definitely he checked all the boxes during the presser. I thought he was great. He interacted with all the fans or the people in the room, and all of the players that were there, and former players, teammates, Jeff MacArthur, Chase. I think Chase Lyman was there too. I saw Scott Fujita as well. And just, I think the thing that stood out to me, Andy, from that press conference is that one line he talks about how he has relationships with a lot of people in this room, and he's talked with a lot of people. But he said something to the extent of our relationships, he's talking about his relationship with that person is going to change. Because he asked them, like, how much are you donating or helping out the program? And the other person would laugh and smile. And he said, well, I'm not smiling. And so the way he goes about talking to guys is going to be anything to help him win and for the betterment of the program. And like, that's going to be crazy. The word I heard to describe Tosh as a football coach is psychotic. And I think at this point it's a good chaos type of thing, right? Like, he flew out to Hawaii to talk to to our like star quarterback, like on his own dime, on commercial. Like, that's on the day he was introduced to the Cal family. Like, that's a psychotic football coach. And if he's that attentive to building those relationships, like, that just gave us a glimpse into, probably why he was National Recruit of the Year, and why he's so good at being able to build relationships with people. And so, like, that's going to be really, really cool to see moving forward as a Cal grad. Like, it's not going to be difficult for him because it's like he was here. It's going to be so much easier for him to sell a place that he experienced, just like he talked about in that clip we played at the beginning, than to, like, use talking points at a place that he was just hired by. And how much more authentic are those conversations going to sound like when he's like, yeah, like, it's the 40-year decision. Like, you got to prep for life after ball and all of that stuff. On top of, if we actually do have all the support systems in place for him to be able, financially and not non-financial, to be able to go out and get guys to bring them in and play here. Like, it's going to set a brand new standard and surprise a lot of people along the way that, like, this is what Cal football used to be, and it just took us a long time to get here, but we're finally, like, headed back to relevancy.
I love it. Couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I think that's the optimism that we should all buy into going forward. But Rob, I think on that note, take us home.
Well, that wraps it up for us on this episode of the California Golden Bear Cast and the Living Under the Rock episode. If you're listening to us, you already know where to find us, but you can find this podcast on all podcast listening services. You can tweet at us at Golden Bearcast. You can email us goldenbearcast@gmail.com. You can find all the written stuff over at Radford, California. And folks, that's it. We'll be back sooner rather than later with much more news. I'm sure this offseason won't be a string of emergency podcasts as we dive into a single portal season, Andy. So we're gonna have to. There's gonna be a lot to talk about because we're not gonna have to worry about two portals. And then, of course, the last thing to leave you all on is the team's going to Hawaii. So if you're able, make the trip. The game's on Christmas Eve. There is a red eye back apparently to the Bay Area after the game, so there is a way to kind of do it relatively short.
Oh my God. If you want to follow Tosh's example, go ahead.
You know
and
what's
do
hilarious,
that.
Andy? I didn't say this to you, but when we were recording that podcast on the Glade with Rich, we were going to call you because this was before the official announcement that we were going to the Hawaii Bowl, but it kind of, there were rumors, right, saying that we were going to go there. I was going to call you and be like, and we head to a reporter on the ground for the Hawaii Bowl, reporting in. He's there a month before the game so he can report on the game. We now go to Andy Johnston in Hawaii. Andy, what is the weather like in Honolulu?
Yeah, 82 and beautiful every day. It was that would have been great. Yeah, it was so funny when that was announced and you were like, you should just stay. I was like, honestly, it's 3 weeks away.
Just stay. But yeah, all right, cool. That's a good spot to end it. And listeners, as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.